Founder of World Famous Company and author of World Famous: How to Create a Kickass Brand, David Tyreman has been described as the Rosetta Stone for brand building. His unorthodox approach for helping entrepreneurial startups, personal brands, and helping Fortune 500 companies crack their brand DNA has made him one of the most sought-after keynote speakers and consultants in the nation. David's first great success was the visual branding and merchandising firm Propaganda, which handpicked and sold vintage and modern props from mountain bikes to old typewriters as thematic storytelling objects for retail giants including Polo Ralph Lauren, Nike, and Banana Republic. After topping $20 million in annual sales, David sold the business and launched the World Famous Company LLC in 2000. He's been joyfully creating kick-ass brands and sharing what he's learned as a consultant and a popular keynote speaker ever since. We are very grateful to have David here today, so please give a warm, boundless welcome to David Tyreman, and welcome back our own Joe Malcoun, who will be moderating once again. Take it away, Joe.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to be back. I really enjoyed the conversation with Hap earlier today, and I'm very excited to welcome David. David, what's going on? You're on mute. There you are. Hey, how are you?
Great. And I'm just noticing you're sitting in the brand hot seat. Good.
Yeah, you love this chair. Yeah, this chair has a lot of history at Nutshell, and David's participated in that. Okay, before we get started, I want to share a little bit about how we connected.
Okay.
And it actually circles all the way back to earlier this morning when I interviewed Hap Klopp. So I shared with the audience the fact that I was introduced to Hap as the founder of the North Face. And of course, you initially were thinking, yeah, right, is he really the founder of North Face? And of course he is. And he's this incredible, brilliant business leader. And I remember one day I was talking to him and asking him, who would you recommend that I work with if I want to help work on building Nutshell's brand? And he literally was like, there's only one person, and his name's David Tyreman. And
thank you.
And we searched your name, and of course we found the world famous website, which was crazy. Like, that was a crazy website. And we got on the phone with you, and you were this huge personality, and you came out and ended up having a really profound impact on Nutshell. And the very brief story I want to share with folks is that Nutshell was going through this big transition. I just joined as CEO, and we just hired a bunch of new people, and there was kind of this like before and after dynamic, this new and old kind of dynamic. And David, I'll never forget, you picked up on that right away in our one of our sessions together, and you stopped and you told everyone to stand up, walk around the room, and physically give other people a pat on the back and say, I've got your back. Do you remember this?
Of course, yes.
And a couple years later, when we developed Nutshell's values, one of the very first ones we came up with was, I've got your back. And more importantly, we have an emoji, a custom emoji for each value that we use in Slack. And the custom emoji for I've got your back is your face.
I am so glad that Theo, my partner, is not here, because he'd be groaning like, you're blowing David's ego up. Stop it.
Oh, come on. You're worth every word. Okay, so I want to jump into it right away, because what you do better than anyone I know is tell incredible stories. And what I really kind of would love to accomplish today is for you to share some of those stories, and not just for the pure entertainment of them, though they are very entertaining, but because I found you learn so much. That's your mechanism and your delivery for teaching your lessons. And right out of the gate, I want to talk about the fact that a lot of amazing successes start with incredible failures. And your story is no different. Can you take it from there?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that. But you know, just before I answer that question, I do want to I'm just going to go back. I was just watching Andy and the team speak a few minutes ago. And one of the things I want to just bounce back to the Nutshell brand is Andy shared a story during our brand intensive work that we did. And he shared a story about being in his dorm room and wanting to be able to help entrepreneurs actually create a business from their dorm room. And that is something that I think is really deep into the brand story and the meaning, the culture of Nutshell. And I love that. So it's a really important piece. And so storytelling, it is important because people remember those details. They might not remember all the elements that Nutshell can offer, but they can remember that was the company, that guy from his dorm room. As long as they remember something that struck them as meaningful, that's important because it's easy to remember. It's not even like a test. It's just something that we've memorized without studying. So,
David, I love that. And there's no question. I think like I've already learned something today. I know that Nutshell can do a lot better job of telling our stories. And I'm just gonna make a note. Ben, start writing the story about Andy in the dorm room.
It's really important because people remember it, and it makes it real. It makes it not just something on a screen, on a phone or an iPad or a laptop. It makes it a real, personal, emotional thing. And that's what. So we'll get into this in a bit. You asked me about my story of failure, and it's true. I came to the States with a suitcase, and what I'm going to tell you honestly is, brand America, even today, is such a powerful brand that it causes some people to literally pack their bags and leave. I left England and I came to America literally with a suitcase, $5,000, and my idea for my version of the American dream. And I'm going to share the story. Anyone who's listening is welcome to it, but I don't recommend it because it was absolutely a dismal failure. But we bought vintage things, some antique things from England, about $5,000 worth of inventory. And our big idea was to sell it the way that you might sell Tupperware. So we did antique parties in people's homes. People drank the wine, they ate the cheese, they looked at the price tag and they were like, oh, I think I've left the iron on, I've got to go. And no one bought anything. And within 6 months, we were down to our last $20. And we lived in Southern California. We were in Costa Mesa. And it was a Tuesday. And we had something worse than bad credit. We had no credit. We had no bank overdraft. We had no credit cards, no friendly bank manager. We didn't really know anybody. And we were down to $20. We had a $20 bill left. And it was Tuesday. And I put it on the coffee table between us in the kitchen. And we sat staring at it. And after a while, and I was freaking out. I'm like, I left England. Everyone waved goodbye. And I'm off to do this adventure. I can't go back at failure. And so after a while, I said to my business partner, I'm like, do you have any ideas? He said, no, do you? I said, well, it's Tuesday. And there's that bar on Main Street, and they do all the beer you can drink for $7 and all the nachos and cheese you can eat for $2.99. Let's go out. So we went. We had an evening I'll never, ever forget because we talked and talked and talked. And after a while, after a bit of beer in my system, I said to the bartender, I said, we just spent our last 20 in the whole world in your bar. And she said, why? This bar's crap. And I was like, well, it's the one we could afford. And so she goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pour you some shots. So she started pouring us shots and she started telling the other bar staff, these guys. And they started buying us appetizers. And then they started telling people in the bar, these guys that, and people, not tons of people, but a few people gathered around and we started telling stories and telling our story of our adventure so far. And all of a sudden it was ding, 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 last call. And I actually started crying and the bartender that had taken care of us, she goes, what's wrong? I'm like, I can't even tip you. I can't even give you a tip. And she goes, stand up. So I stood up and she put her arm around me. She goes, look around this bar. And I looked, she goes, nearly everyone here is broke, but you are on this amazing adventure. Don't quit. And I was like, I remember like, oh, you're right. And then this guy who had been chatting a bit, but he hadn't talked much. He's like, how are you guys getting home? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to walk. And he goes, no, and he owned a limousine company. And he drove us home in the back of a brand new limousine. And I just remember being in the back. I'd never been in a limousine before. Just thinking, I love America. Who could be in America?
Everybody rides in limos.
I'm in a brand new limousine. Anyway, so the next morning when I woke up, that was honestly the day I'd been dreading. And I've met so many people who really relate to this. Waking up absolutely penniless, thinking, am I a loser or what? But actually, I felt relieved. I've been so dreading that day. I actually realized I'm relieved. I'm alive. I've got 2 ears. I've got a mouth. I've got legs. And I jumped out of bed. I felt hope. And I went through to the kitchen. There was my business partner. He looked like he'd been beaten up. And I was like, you know what? If you want to go back to England, you can. Anyone will forgive you. I'll forgive you. But I've just realized today I'm staying. I don't know how I'm going to make this work, but I'm staying. And he looked at me and he's like, I'm going to stay too then. And so I'm going to quickly fast forward the tape, because I think what's really important, I didn't know what was going on at the time, but as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as business people, nothing goes in a straight line. Light doesn't even go in a straight line. Everything has its ups and downs. And during the downs, that's when we get really lonely. That's when we beat the crap out of ourselves. It's when we think we're losers. We've got to remember, never let go, never lose faith in your hustle, your ability to break through walls and make this happen. So 7 years later, without telling you the whole story, we realized, okay, well, these antique parties aren't working. Who can we sell this stuff to? And we realized, wow, look, department stores need this, retailers need this. And we ended up being on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Me.
Right. So you actually had seen that, like, stores like Banana Republic and Ralph Lauren, they had this stuff like all over the stores.
Yes. We ended up doing every single Banana Republic in the country. We ended up supplying every single Ralph Lauren store on the planet. And this didn't happen on day one. But I'll tell you what happened, though, Joe. And I think that's probably why I'm here today. We realized along the way that we were actually helping companies not just put props and displays out, and that was the industry. We realized we were visual branders, that we were actually helping tell a story to help differentiate our clients. And then one day, as I'm helping deliver this big order to one of the Macy's stores locally, I was like, wait, I'm helping all these brands and I don't have a brand. So we got busy creating our own brand, Propaganda, which I sold in 2000. And the most fun I ever had in business was creating my brand. And once we did create our brand, our business took off. And one of the lines I use is, in business, without a brand, you're just a vendor. And vending is for machines. Vending's for machines.
Right. Okay. So on that note,
yeah,
what is a brand? Right? Like, how do we get to, like, what is a brand? Like, how do we build a brand? How is it different than, say, building a company?
Great. So I'm asking you this, Joe, and I'm asking everyone who's listening, just to think back to when you were a child. What was that product? It could be a toy, it could be cereal, it could be whatever. What was that thing you begged your parents for, or you begged your grandparents for, or you saved up your allowance so you could get it yourself, that you just had to have? What was it, Joe?
He-Man toys. No question. I had, like, the whole thing.
Which toys?
He-Man.
P-Man toys.
No,
okay. I don't
He-Man.
know.
This is not a British thing.
Clearly. Pete Man, you said.
P-H-E.
Oh, He-Man. Oh, I have that.
Okay.
I think
He-Man.
the beard, it's absorbing some of the sound.
Sorry. Yeah.
So for you, it was He-Man. For whatever you wrote down or thought of, if you're listening, I hear people shouting out Captain Crunch, Levi's, Lego, you name it. And there's always that brand that people think of. And mine, when I share this story, it's a British, it's called Pickle, it's called Branston. And some people will never have heard of Branston, but you put in England, you put it on salads, you put it on meat pies, you put it in sandwiches, you have it with all sorts of different food. And there's a jingle. And we would sit at the dinner table and literally sing the jingle to our mum, bring out the Branston, and mum would bring out the Branston. We'd have Branston with our food and it gave it flavor. So anyway, one day we sang Bring Out the Branston, and she says, oh, we're out of Branston. So she calls Dad and says, John, bring some Branston home with you. And we couldn't have dinner until Dad arrived. And so Dad says, okay, I'm on my way. He comes racing home. He forgot the Branston, so he pulls into the corner store down the street, and they didn't have Branston, so he bought and this is a terrible word, he bought the generic brand. And I remember this paper bag being placed on the dining table, and I remember opening it and pulling this thing out. Oh, what's this? It's not right. It's not Branston. And I'm still telling the story today, so many years later. So the point is, I'm talking about a relish. A relish. you can go to certain supermarkets and there are aisles just of relish. But I know the exact one I want. And you know you needed, out of the array of things you could get, you had to have He-Man. And whoever is watching and thinking of the brands you had to have, you had to have Lego, or you had to have Captain Crunch, or whatever. And so what I'm sharing here is that we've all known since childhood that despite an ocean of choices, there's that one that we had to have. So therefore, by default, it's possible to be the one that people want. We've already proved it's possible by our choices since we were children. So to answer your question, what is a brand? There are two ways of looking at it. There's two sides to the yin and the yang. To most consumers, a brand simply means, what type of something did you get? What brand of car do you drive? What brand of detergent do you use? What brand of dishwasher did you buy? It means what type of something. That's what it generally means. And most consumers it would be hard for them to answer. They just think of the word as the meaning of type, referencing a company. But for us, on the other side of that equation, those of us wanting to create a brand, we have to look at it very differently, because a brand is really about, what is it that makes you most valuable and unique consistently to your chosen customers? Not to everybody. We can never please everybody. But what makes you most unique and valuable consistently to the chosen market that you wish to do business with? And we can sit there, squeeze our brains trying to work out the answer. And there's a process we must go through to determine the solution to that very important question, so that we're not just a type of something. We are the one that our customers want. That's the best way I can describe a brand.
And now this is a little counterintuitive for a sales conference, but you sort of famously say you shouldn't be selling your product. You should be building a vicarious world, right, for your customer to live in. What do you mean by that?
Great question. I'm going to go back to He-Man. It's think about back again when you were a boy, what you felt when you were planning to buy that next toy. It's how your life is going to be once you have to. It's like being able to. I used to enjoy reading the New York Times on a plane. Can you hear me okay? Okay?
Yes.
Okay. There's now like some kind of echo repeat thing going on. Anyway.
Okay.
I used to read the New York Times when I would sit on a plane. And I used to think, gosh, people are going to think I'm really smart because I'm reading the New York Times. So it's really understanding what is the world we want to create for our customers. What do we want them actually thinking about beyond the actual product or service that we're selling? Do I need to adjust?
Hold on 1 second.
Yes. I can plug in my headset if you want me to.
Your computer. Do you have a headset available that you could throw on, and then turn down the volume?
Got it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, is that better?
That's great.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
It's because I'm so vain, Joe.
That's why?
It's because I'm so vain.
Well, you look great. Didn't you just tell me you lost like 60 pounds?
70.
Oh, sorry, 70.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's say like you've never done the work of defining your brand, right? And we know how that feels. We've been in that place, and it's one of those big, ambiguous, how do I even get started questions. What do you recommend?
Okay, Joe, this is a really important question, and I'm telling you, oftentimes people call me who've worked with me, or they've read my book, or they've been at presentations, and they start saying, "Oh my God, I'm seeing all these brands that need your help." Because the problem is, 98% of businesses and people go about creating a brand ass backwards. So I want you to imagine a cartwheel, like an old cartwheel from a horse and cart from the Western times. So it's a cartwheel, and imagine remember it's got spokes and there's a hub in the middle. So imagine that cartwheel is your business, and everything outside of that cartwheel is the world, your market. So those spokes represent different places where your business touches the world. Because when people start talking about, well, what's my brand? People most often start by saying, oh, well, we need a logo. And then people actually think that their logo is their brand, and it isn't. Even the Apple logo, for example, think of it as just a signpost. You're walking through the mall, I need to go to Apple. Oh, I know Apple's down here. Oh, look, there's the Apple sign. There we go. That doesn't mean that's their brand. Their brand actually is about the experience that you have with the brand. Their brand is about what you feel. Why do you have to have an Apple? Because for me, it's like, well, it's the best, and it's cool, and it's designed for unique people who think different, like me. So it's not just about, oh, look, there's the logo, I'm going to buy it. And think of it from my point of view. If I'm doing a speech to 1,000 business owners, and everybody pulls out their business card with a different logo on it, I'm not going to remember all those logos. But I might remember, like we're saying, I might remember a story. I might remember something about the vicarious world I'm building when they share about why I must do business with them. That's what we do when we're buying products and services. We're thinking about how our life is going to be better by having them. So the first thing we have to do, so I want to just go back to that wheel. Each of the spokes represents a different, what we call a brand touch point, a place that we touch the world. So, for example, it could be a website, could be social media, could be a trade show presence. In your case today, it's this video presentation event that you're doing. Anyway, anything that we do to try to grab the attention of potential clients is called branding. And so most companies start working on their branding. So they're going ass backwards from the outside in. Oh, look, we need a website. Oh, look, we need some videos. Oh, look, we need a brochure. We need a logo. And they create this stuff, but it doesn't. So I've had people crying in my audience when one girl, literally, she was called Nancy. I did an 1.5-hour keynote, and she came running up to me crying. And I literally thought, what have I said to upset her? But she just spent $30,000 on all of those things and realized during the speech that they didn't represent anything about who she was or her customers. So we have to start with the hub of that cartwheel. We have to understand our brand DNA. We have to understand our brand identity. And to do that, we have to get really clear about our values, our attitude to things in life, to attitude to whatever, and the personality that we want our brand to express. And it's got to be delivered. We have to understand who we are, and we have to own it. We have to deliver it so that the customer's experience is consistent with what we stand for. So really, the first step I teach everybody, from presidents of big companies to startups, is you have to create an invisible bubble and put your products or services or both into that bubble and let it float off to the periphery, not away, but to the periphery. So you still can see it, but it's not the main thing we're staring at. Because the products and services are important, but your brand is more important. Like I said earlier, without a brand, you're just a vendor. And vending is for machines. And if there was a vending machine right next to you, would you walk across town to go to this identical vending machine? No. What would the point be? But when we create a brand that resonates with the particular exact customers we want to resonate with, they will try harder to come. And I'm not just talking about physical space. I'm talking about they won't just buy any old junk. They'll seek out the right stuff because you've built a brand that resonates with them, with values and attitude and personality that they appreciate and value. So those are the steps.
Do you think that,
excuse me,
if you were to take it to the extreme, you could almost remove the product from a really strong brand and replace it with something else? And I bring this up because I'll never forget the exercise you did with Trove. It wasn't with Nutshell, but with Trove, about the toaster.
Right.
And if Trove sold toasters, it would do X, Y, Z. And I found that absolutely fascinating. Can you share a little bit about that and why the product, like you said, it's not at the center?
Let's face it, the iPhone isn't the must-have device that it was a few years ago. But will Apple die? Most likely not. Think one of my favorite brands, Virgin. Virgin, and forgive me, this I have spoken to many audiences and I've asked them, do you know what Virgin really stands for? What the key heart behind Virgin is? And I'll put a napkin over my hand and I'll say, if you're easily offended, don't look. But if you really want to know, and I'm going to do it right now. So if you're easily offended, don't look. But the word behind Virgin, or the meaning behind Virgin, is actually this. It's basically, and it really is, it's standing up to the status quo. In Britain, there's this old boy network and there's the class system. And Richard Branson was kind of like, screw this. I can do better than this. I can do it better than the way you're saying it's the way it's done and we're never going to change that. He's like, no, we're going to do it better. And he's got so many brands that carry the Virgin logo. So they're all Virgin brands, but a massive array of different products and services. Because people are buying into that vicarious world that he represents of, you know what, we're not going to be controlled by you toffee-nosed twerps. We're going to do it our way. That's really the truth.
So it's interesting because Hap actually touched about some of this earlier too. And I think it actually brings us into a really important topic that Hap talked a little bit about, but I know you care deeply about, which is effectively running away from the crowd, being different, standing out. I'll never forget. I think it was the night before we started our first session together of a 2.5-day workshop. And you sent me an email with an image, a screenshot of our website, and a bank. I think it was a bank. Was it a bank?
It was a bank.
They were the same image.
It was. And actually, I found another one. So I'm going to tell you a
popular sort of like design at the time, where you kind of had like
exactly, and so that's what people
laid out on a desktop.
And you're making such a great point, Joe. Yeah. Is what we tend to do when we don't know our own brand, when we're not owning our brand. We tend to, we're so excited, we've got our business, we're moving and shaking. Well, wait, how's it done in this industry? Oh, look, they seem successful. Oh, look, let's do it like that. And people actually spend time and money emulating how others in their industry are doing it, which means they're literally bolting on camouflage and then wondering, how come no one can see me? How come I'm not getting? And so I'm going to get, actually, the Hap story. One of the things I always say is, what's the absolute best way to stand out from the crowd? And people give me all sorts of answers, but the truth is the best way to stand out from the crowd is to never, ever join the crowd in the first place. Never. Once you're in the crowd, right? So when I met Hap, this is a perfect example. He was speaking at this event, and I just thought, God, Hap is just brilliant. He's such a real person. Look what he's accomplished, and what a down-to-earth, real, genuine, funny, smart, amazing man. I've got to meet him. Well, of course, after the speech, there's this long line of people. I'm like, God, I can't join the crowd. If I line up with them, you can't stand and have a chat. Everyone's behind you, and you've got to just thank you very much and move on. So I just hung out and watched. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just realized, wait, I'm going to wait till I'm going to be the very last person so that I'm not holding anyone up. So I let everybody go. And then I went up to Hap as he was literally thinking of moving on. I ended up having a 15-minute chat with him and Margot, his wife. And we had such a laugh that I said, hey, can we go for coffee sometime? And he goes, coffee? Let's go for cocktails. I'm like, I love you, Hap.
So, that sounds like Hap.
And so, it really is true. And I looked back and thought, God, that's really what we have to do in business, is find a different way and not join the crowd. When we join, and we can join the crowd so easily. It's so easy. Like when I started speaking, I noticed most speakers all wore suits and had their hair combed. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. Every which way, I've got tons of stories on how to follow your own path. But it's not about just, oh, look, there's a gimmick, let's copy that. It's really about authenticity to your own brand DNA. So that's what we have to get to, is our brand DNA, so that the decisions we make across our brand touch points in our behaviors and actions are unique to us and easily remembered by our customers because they're different.
On that note, you have this phrase that I absolutely love, not just because it rolls off the tongue, but I think it also really, really does a great job of encapsulating you, David. And it's fortune favors the bold. You're a big advocate for being bold. And I think anyone who knows you knows that you are a seriously bold person.
Well,
my question is there such thing as too bold?
Well, sometimes you never know where the line is until you've crossed it. But I'm not talking about, I
don't like when you flipped off our whole audience. Or?
Yeah, but I don't just walk in and do that. I prepare them. I get them, I prepare them so that they're. And actually, these days, just watching TV, we see that things have changed radically in the last 20 years. The F word is just normal. Nudity, male and female nudity, sex scenes. So there's people are open to a lot more than we think. There's a time and a place. But really, I don't, when I say bold, I really am talking about putting your tongue in your cheek. People, business is serious, but people aren't. That's an old saying, but it doesn't get embraced enough. So I'm just going to give you a stupid example, because branding isn't just about packaging or just about the obvious. Back when I was running propaganda, I had a CFO who was from the Ukraine. I can't do his accent very well, but it was a thick Ukraine accent. He was a brilliant CFO. He came from Trader Joe's. I actually spoke to Trader Joe when I hired him. And one day he comes marching into my office and he's like, David, look, we're not a bank, but we were supposed to be paid 30 days after shipping. And he goes, well, our net 30 isn't, people are paying net 68 and we can't afford it. So we had a room, we called it the party room, because I always said you don't have a boardroom, people are bored in boardrooms. So we had a party room, and it was a disco. We sat on beanbags, there were disco balls, it was awesome. And we would sit in there to do our brainstorming, and we're like, okay, we've got to, how do we get people to pay on time? And it was a really tough one. We came up with all sorts of ideas, and we didn't have a solution. And then all of a sudden it was my birthday. And my parents sent me a birthday card, and I opened it, and it went, "Happy birthday to you." And I closed it, and then it sang it again. And then a couple of days later, I suddenly thought, wait, and this is a long time ago, can we get those recordings? Can we make our own? So I got my purchasing people on it. They were like, yes, but they're $5 each at the time. So I'm like, buy a bunch. So we got Igor in his Ukraine accent, and the recording was, "You must pay this bill today." And you're what? Just imagine you're in a boring accounts payable department in Sears, and all you do is open bills, and all of a sudden you get this card that says, "You must pay this bill today." Our net receivable went down to 28 days. They were actually paying early, and it's like joy. It was humor, and so and I was a bit nervous, like, what do they get? What do they think? Well, they're going to think this is rude by saying you must pay this bill today, right now. But they loved it. They loved it. And sometimes when you watch comedians, the truth is funny. So we don't have to be ugly or obnoxious. I wrote a list on the subject of bold. We never, ever can be racist or sexist or homophobic or bullying or mean or selfish. We have to be generous. And because even if someone tells a joke that you don't like, if you know they're coming from a good place, you're not offended, unless you really choose to be. And it doesn't have to be humor. We don't always have to use humor to be bold. We had a situation where we used to ship in brown cardboard boxes, and one day we shipped an order to a local Macy's outside of San Francisco in Burlingame, and they called them and said, "We haven't got your order." And this is a brand new account. So we immediately reshipped the order and overnighted it, because our policy was, we're never going to make our problem your problem. You need the product. You're getting it. We'll follow up with UPS or whatever the problem was. We'll work it out. Anyway, the second order, we knew it arrived. It was signed for. It was a special delivery. And they called again saying, "We haven't got your order." So then it comes to my desk. And so I'm like, they've got it. So this is not right. So I called the buyer and I said, "Look, we've never met. I'm going to drive. It's only 25 minutes drive. I'd love to meet you. Maybe I can take you for coffee or something." I go to the Macy's shipping receiving dock. I'd never been to one before, and they are massive. And to my horror, I noticed everybody ships in brown cardboard boxes. So I'm like, I'm supposed to be the expert, the leader in differentiation, and here I am, just like everyone else. So we went back to the party room and we started brainstorming. What can we do? How can we fix this problem of customers thinking that we're not shipping on time when they can't find our orders? Took me 3 hours to find those. I found both orders. Took me 3 hours. So anyway, we came up with a white box. But we also put my face on it and my business partner's face with bubbles coming out of our mouth saying, here's your order. Thanks for your business. But on the other side of the box, we put this quiz. And it said, one of the quiz questions was, who are the best looking guys on this box? And it's finally, I won something. But then on the other side, we have these handling instructions. And it said, for example, if you take this box to the department that ordered it right now, your gift is you get to pop the bubble wrap yourself. And it was a few stupid things. But one of them was, if you like this box, call this number. We started getting calls from big, burly warehouse guys from all around the country, like, we like your boxes. And you know, it was a blast. Those boxes, they didn't just help our customers find our product. It was joy for them. We even put in our New York showroom a whole wall of just our boxes. And there were buyers bringing other buyers in. See these boxes? These are the guys that do those boxes. It brought us so much business by simply spending $2 more on a box to tell our story, to connect emotionally with our customers. So when you look around your brand or your business and you say, oh, well, we've got a website, or we've got packaging for our products, we've got a logo, we've got some videos, is it boring? Are you zoning out your customers? Are you boring people? Are you boring them away with money and time you've spent doing it? Are you just checking boxes saying, oh, we got the website, that's that done, we got the boat. We need to steal the show. We need to inspire people at every single opportunity. Your voicemail. We got business from having a unique, stupid voicemail system. You have to do, so that when I say be bold and be
wait,
daring,
tell them what the voicemail was. It was great. Tell them about it.
Well, we changed it a lot. We put, what happened is I was in charge of our Polo account, and my assistant came through one day, and it wasn't just one person representing Polo. It's Polo Men's, Polo Women's, Polo Factory, Polo Sport, Polo Japan, Polo Europe, Polo this, Polo that. So if I'm on the phone with Polo, I can't be on the phone with someone else from Polo. So they would get pissed off that they were being put on hold. So we realized we've got to change the experience because we just had that boring music. So we got together. I used to have a huge shower in this warehouse in San Francisco, and there was lots of shower heads and trees and everything. So we got a bunch of our office team into the shower, and we turned all the water on. But there was lots of spaces you could stand without water, but you could hear a lot of water. And we just pretended that we're all in the shower, washing each other. Sorry, we can't get to the phone. We're just cleaning up. You know, don't drop the soap and just stupid stuff. But I remember once I was on the phone with a buyer and it wasn't going well. And I thought, I'm just not getting anywhere here. So I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Can I put you on hold for a few seconds? And he goes, yes. And it was almost like boiling an egg. I was kind of like, I think 30 seconds should do it. And I pick it back up. Oh, sorry about that. And he goes, oh God, put me back on. That was great. And the whole mood was changed. We once even got a call from a local paper and they were like, we actually don't want to talk to anyone. We just want you to put us on hold. And we got a story. So there are so many, when you draw your own brand action wheel and you put all those spokes in, don't just put website, trade show, but every single place you touch the world, every single place you might get the attention of a customer or someone that could tell someone who should be your customer to come to you. We have to make sure our brand DNA in the core is educating our decisions across all these brand touch points so that, like I said at the beginning, we're consistently unique and valuable to our intended customers. And when we behave like that, they're already happy. They're all, oh God, I love doing business with Nutshell. You know, check out Nutshell. When you shake the thing, there's a squirrel comes up. It's awesome. And that is a really powerful tool. It's something for people to share. That is just a bit of fun. Oh, I want that. How do you get it? What's the address? I'm going to get that. And then all of a sudden, that squirrel's making sales. So that's the secret to building a brand. Don't emulate others unless you want to be invisible. Understand your brand DNA. I have a book I always recommend. It's called World Famous, but it's a simple read, but you're going to focus on literally 3 words that define your brand, that to help you be differentiated from everybody else. And that's it. That's the secret.
Okay, so you've already actually inspired me with a really big idea that Andy's going to freak out about, and he's probably going to get really mad at me, but I think I'm going to pitch it to him anyhow.
Awesome. I want to hear about it.
Okay, I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, let me know.
But we have to wrap up.
Okay.
And I just want to thank you, David. One, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you.
It's awesome chatting with you, Joe.
Now, I just want to share with the crowd, like, you travel around the country having seminars with folks on this topic. And if anybody wants to learn more, how can they do so?
Okay, it's really easy. Either worldfamouscompany.com or davidtyreman.com. We do actually have a brand workshop coming up next month. There's a few seats left here in Las Vegas. But also for brand consulting, there's a space on the website. You can reach out to us ask any questions, and we'll get back to you quickly. We work one-on-one. We do group work for startup or smaller companies that don't have the budget for the big intensive, and we work with Fortune 500 companies too. I'm just back from working with Gallo and from Bacardi. But I'm not only interested in working with the big companies. I came with a suitcase. I'm here to help entrepreneurs who are serious about being successful, who really want to change the world for the better. So I'm not one of those companies that, I only work with plumbers or I only work with accountants. I work with people, companies, groups, men, women who are driven to do something freaking awesome. And that's why I love working with Nutshell. I'm not trying to toot your horn, but it was brilliant working with Nutshell.
I can honestly and sincerely say it was like one of the most impactful exercises we have done as a company. And it continues to affect us. And so,
awesome.
So good to see you, David. Thanks again.
Joe.
Thanks so much for helping us out.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. And I'll speak to you real soon.
Okay. Bye, David.
Bye-bye.